Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the final Finance and Administration Committee meeting of the County of Renfrew, Wednesday, November 10th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. As we gather this morning, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Connie, has roll call been taken?
Through you, Chair, to committee, yes, roll call has been taken.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? I see none. Can I get an adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on October 14th, 2021, please? Moved by Councillor Hunt, second by Councillor Rose. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Donoghue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not an error or omission. I'm not certain when to bring this forward. I note in the minutes there was a request made, I believe it was Councillor Brose, if the training module for the vaccine hesitant could be made available to the lower tier municipalities, and I believe Mr. Foss was going to investigate on the possibility of that. I'm just wondering, perhaps not in the approval of the minutes, but if that could be spoken to once they are approved.
Yes, let's get to that when we do the corporate services report. Thank you. I thought I thought Jeff had said yes, but we will get to him. So all in favor? Thank you. We have no delegations, so at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Morrow with the administration report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee, the administration report can be found on page 3. And the first item in the administration report is the inaugural meeting of County Council. So planned on Tuesday, December 4th, and we are going to endeavor to host it face-to-face here at the County of Renfrew. Again, we will be working very hard to make sure that we meet public health guidelines to accommodate appropriate social distancing and make sure that members of council and staff remain safe as we undertake our first inaugural face-to-face. So very much looking forward to that, and again, we hope to do that in a way. The caution is that seems, and I think the chair will support me on this one because we talked a little bit yesterday about it. It seems like COVID numbers seem to be all over the place, and we see over the last week an increase, and the I forget what you called it, Chair, yesterday. It was the
positivity rate.
Positivity rate was over 3, and that's not a good sign. But again, we're proceeding cautiously, and we hope to be able to pull this off. That's number 1, Chair. 2, Whitewater Regional Council. Attached as Appendix 1 is a resolution from the Township of Whitewater Region regarding a proposed change to the composition of their council. And that is there for your information. Resolutions number 3, or would you like me to stop there before I get into resolutions?
Yeah, let's just do 1 and 2 here, and then we can jump right in. So information item number 1, the inaugural. So what we were speaking about yesterday was that even though the number was only at 441 for the province of Ontario, there were only 19,000 tests processed. Which jumped us from a 2% positivity rate the day before to 3.1. So I'm not sure of the trends, but I think that by County Council Day, we will have a better idea of what the inaugural will be. I feel really bad for Warden Robinson because she hasn't really been, she's only had 1 inaugural, and then boom, COVID hit. So I'd love to meet in person, but I think we're going to have to wait and see. I saw Councillor Brose.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And just a point of clarification, Paul said the inaugural meeting was December 4th. In our report, it says
Oh,
the 14th.
sorry.
Just a point of clarification.
Oh, thank you for that, sir. I apologize for misspeaking. I meant to say the 14th.
It's okay, Paul. We all make mistakes. I saw somebody else's hand up.
Councillor Peckett, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Peckett.
Thank you, Chair. It was the same question as Councillor Bros.
Well, you guys are on it. Anything further on item number 1? Item 2, Whitewater changing their council.
Warden.
Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to comment, because I read the story that was in the Eganville Leader about Whitewater looking at changing getting rid of the Reeves position basically and having the mayor be the head of council and the head of and the representative county council. There was a comment in the story though that is an error, and I think I wanted at least to bring that forward to FNA. One of the councillors says that they were aware that meetings are called by the county warden where the mayor is invited to attend as the head of municipality and the Reeve is not. I think it's very important to realize that that never happens at county council. We are all county councillors, whether or not we are the mayor or the Reeve of our respective municipalities. Once we join county council, that's why we're called councillors and not Reeves and mayors. We're all even and equal at the table. And so I just think that publicly, I think we be sure that the people of Whitewater and everybody, all the residents of the county of Renfrew realize that we do not have times where the Reeves who sit at our table are excluded and from any conversation or discussion in relation to county council business. I think we would all have a really hard time if suddenly we told Reeve Doncaster and Reeve Emo and Reeve Lynch and Reeve Briggier and Reeve Robinson that to hit the road because we were going to have a meeting with just the mayors. I don't think that'd go over very well. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't. So I just wanted to certainly make that on the record, make that clarification that when you become a member of county council, regardless of whether your title is Reeve, county councillor or mayor, we are all in this together as county council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Warden. That's excellent clarification. Yes, Councillor Peckett.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a good enough point that we should be asking the Eganville Leader or sending a letter to them or an email to them clarifying that, because the warden makes a very good point there, which would mislead a lot of the people in Whitewater region. So I would suggest that the county contact the paper and ask them to clarify that for their readers, especially in Whitewater Township. Thank you.
So
Do I take that as
a motion? Yeah, and is the warden willing to do that, or do we want it sent from the CAO? Yes, Warden.
Thank you, Chair. I spoke to Ray Briggier yesterday about this. She hadn't seen the story or noticed that comment in the story in the Leader. I have asked her to bring that forward to her next Whitewater Region Council meeting, which I believe will be next week, to clarify that for on the record as well. You know, if we want to ask the Leader to provide a correction, the thing is though that normally a newspaper is not going to correct something if that's what was said, because it's not their error. It may be the person misspoke. I don't know how that all evolved. So that's a challenge. Certainly if I was the editor of the newspaper and I was asked to correct something that someone else misspoke, that wouldn't go over well. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that correction. I think that I understand what Councillor Peckett is saying, because I was very concerned that this was the wrong message going out there. Perhaps we could wait to see what happens after the Whitewater Region Council meeting and go from there if Councillor Peckett feels that's appropriate. This is already 2 weeks old.
So might I suggest then that we wait on Whitewater Council, but then Warden, would you then also speak to this at County Council, please? Because you're the one that caught the inequity. Yes, Councillor Peckett.
Thank you, Chair. It doesn't have to be asking the paper to correct something. It could be sent as a clarification to the comments that were made. But you also have to remember that there's the Eganville leader is read far and wide throughout Renfrew County, not just in Whitewater. I mean, it seems to be the most popular paper in the county. I think, and by far the best one in my area. Just would hate to for the public not to have more information at their fingertips than just those who happen to watch the Whitewater council meeting and or those who happen to watch the county council meeting. But I'm fine if you want to just leave it till it comes through. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Warden.
I'm happy to call Gerald Tracy and just have a conversation with him. We'll see where it goes from there.
Try that. All right, thank you. Anything further on to? Yes, Councillor Sweet.
Perhaps Warden Eden, a letter to the editor clarifying the roles and functions of those who sit around the county council would be, I understand it's not Eganville leaders' fault, they're just simply quoting, but maybe you see that all the time, a letter of clarity, maybe a way of doing it to satisfy the inequities that were put in place.
Warden, I will leave this in your very capable hands. All right, and back over to you, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Chair. Moving to resolutions, item 3, Roma delegations. We have prepared a draft list of Roma delegations for committee's consideration. Please note, though, that the deadline to submit our delegation list with a brief synopsis of each delegation is November 15th. So we will be taking direction from committee and then reporting back to County Council on that direction that we received today, given the deadline. So you see in front of you a list of proposed delegations. 1, Ontario Health Teams, and that is consistent with the direction of Council and the recent support for the CDMA for our local Ontario Health Team, and the issue there being the having elected officials sit and be members of the governance model for Ontario Health Teams. I think that's a very important position for the County of Renfrew and something for us to continue to lobby for. Item number 2 is the role of the County of Renfrew as it relates to supporting financially public health. And that goes back to the original transformation discussions the province was having with respect to modernization and looking at public health units across the province. And again, we believe that continues to be on the radar screen of Council, knowing our financial contribution. So post pandemic, we will want to have that on our radar screen, and something we're proposing as a Roma delegation as well. The next one, in terms of childcare and compensation for childcare, a little bit more controversial, and I'm sure some members of Council or the committee will want to speak to this. We're not convinced or positive, I guess, that this should go forward, but wanted to leave it to committee for them to discuss. Finally, Minister Clark and affordable and attainable housing. Again, a critical issue for the County of Renfrew and all rural municipalities in Eastern Ontario. And that is the access to funds for capital projects to entice development of affordable housing in the County of Renfrew. Again, like many other municipalities, it is a priority for us. Next on the list would be the infrastructure, 4-lane bridge and more. So the conversations with respect to the need for more infrastructure funding for the county of Renfrew. And then again, Minister Phillips for long-term care and discussing that transitional type of housing and the need for that in our community to fill those gaps. So what we talked a little bit yesterday at Health was the need to have a conversation about availability of long-term care beds, and the government is moving forward on that. The government is also supporting community paramedics in support of keeping folks in their homes as long as possible. The gap in the middle, though, is those seniors that need a little bit more, and the transitional housing that it's kind of in between being in your own home, but not ready to be in long-term care yet. And there seems to be a gap there. And we've identified that particular issue as well. So Chair, those are the items proposed for Roma for committee's consideration.
Thank you. So I will read the recommendation that the Finance and Administration Committee approve the submission of the following delegation requests for the Roma virtual conference by the deadline of November 15th, 2021, with the appropriate ministers, and that County Council be advised. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Bose, seconded by Councillor Peckett. Discussion. Warden Robinson.
Actually, Chair, I would rather let Councillor Bose speak first, and then I will speak following that. If that's okay with
Excellent.
you.
Yeah, Councillor Brose.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to speak to the delegation with Minister Lesher. It's something that I had asked for, and we had quite a discussion yesterday at our community services meeting. The challenge is that in Renfrew County, as well as the province, the attraction of early childhood educators is one of the big obstacles that needs to be addressed. And currently in the county, we have available spaces for more childcare, but we don't have enough staff for, providing the care for those additional spaces. So a big part of it is the compensation that doesn't seem to align with the responsibilities and the education requirements that are invested in that profession. And so there seems to be, from the discussion yesterday, that at least at Algonquin College in Pembroke, there's a full complement of students for the early childhood care program. However, one of the challenges is that the graduates, there tends to be turnover because of the licensed private home or child care centers. Often the early childhood educators will move into the Renfrew County School Board or the Renfrew County Catholic School Board as soon as the position becomes available because of the difference in the pays in those positions. So that's why the compensation for child care workers still seems to be an issue in attracting individuals into that profession. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Very well said. All right, Warden, you wanted to follow up?
I do, thank you. So I guess where I'm coming from on with Minister Lesher as well is that I think when we ask to be a delegation, we have to make sure that we're very clear on what our ask is and what the need is. I know there are some families in the county of Renfrew who are struggling to find daycare spots for their children, but the issue that we have in the county is that we're rural. And many people would like to have their childcare provided in their home community, not to have to, get your kid out the door at 5 o'clock in the morning to drop them off on the way to work somewhere between, point A and point B. The problem is we don't have enough licensed childcare homes right now. We had that discussion yesterday at the committee meeting, and Judy indicated to us that if we had more licensed home homes opened, we would be able to provide the care that we need for all of the children that are looking for support at this time. Part of the reason is we're still in a pandemic and there's very strict restrictions happening. So some of those homes are not open for that reason as well. I think that what we're seeing in the ECE realm is the same as what we see in the PSW. There's a lack of people in available. As Councillor Brose indicated, Algonquin College says they have a very full slate this year. It's a condensed program, I believe. So they start, I believe, in September and they finished in August. It goes straight through. I just question the timing of this. I don't know so much that upping the salary, just the same thing. They upped the salary for the PSWs. We didn't suddenly see a whole bunch of people putting their hand up to become a PSW because the pay was better. There's a lot of other issues happening in that system. So I'm just wondering about the timing of this. I don't know that we should be doing this at AMO, perhaps, or Roma, perhaps we should be looking at AMO. Again, I'm just cognizant of when we do ask for delegations that we really are very clear on how this is going to impact. And right now, I believe that it doesn't matter how much they were being paid, they're just the bodies are not out there to fill the positions. And if I know that I understand from Judy as well, there's some opportunities, or I don't know, James might be able to tell me this if it was Algonquin College or not, that some of the tuition is being provided for people to entice them to go into these programs. So I just think to me it's a timing issue. If the position of everyone, of course, is that we go ahead, then that's fine, and I will certainly do everything I can to assist. But I'm just wondering about the timing of the ask.
Thank you for that, Warden. I think so. I had a hand in this, sending it off to yourself and Councillor Brose, and it was wonderful that Laura was able to have a meeting and get back to me. We had 3 private daycares shut down in the village of Eganville through COVID. And as you very rightly said, there were so many constraints that some of these private childcare providers just couldn't do it. That being said, one of the things that I've heard is that people want to go back to work, but they can't go back to work because they don't have childcare. And so, we've got this labor shortage, but if you don't have childcare, then is it a labor shortage or is it a childcare shortage? Because I know at least 4 of my friends want to go back to work and they just can't. So when you talk about timing, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I think that it might warrant just a bug in Minister Lecce's ear, just to let him know what we're facing in rural Ontario. Warden.
And I absolutely, understand that position. I think really what we need to do in the County of Renfrew is a very robust marketing and recruitment campaign to recruit people who want to open a licensed home daycare. I think that is essential to us. We need more of them. And that's where I think that we really have to put a push on. And that's a local responsibility. In my opinion, we can't expect the province to recruit for us homes in our area, but we can certainly do a really good job of that. We have some exceptional homes. We have exceptional staff in childcare that can help lead and direct people who are considering that as a career option.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brose.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly don't disagree with anything that the warden has said. I still think it is important to have the conversation with Mr. Lecce, just because from my conversations with Director Lapine and also with Ms. Mulvihill, in the fall economic statement, the province is committing money for additional childcare spaces, and yet across the province, one of the challenges is not so much the need for more spaces, but definitely the need for more staff. And creating more spaces, but not having the staff to fulfill the supervision of the children doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So I still think that it's a discussion that is worth having with the province.
Thank you. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been a fascinating debate. From it, what I have gleaned, though, is there seems to be uncertainty surrounding the challenge of providing adequate childcare in the county of Renfrew, that until perhaps there is more certainty on what would be of assistance, I liken this, it has been, I just said yesterday, eternal in the sense of the time that I've sat on the County of Renfrew Council with respect to health and human resource staffing in long-term care. That was not a function of the wage structure. It is a function of there simply not being the pool of talent, the pool of professionals to take on these roles. That seems to be the conversation that's happening here. And that, from my perspective, I guess I would fall into the camp of the wardens, which is without certainty on what the message is that would be communicated to Mr. Lecce. I think that it would be a challenge without being able to distill that as to what would address the particular challenges that we are experiencing, because it does seem to me to be uncertain at this point.
So perhaps the warden's suggestion that it might be more appropriate at AMO, although at that time we'll have a different, well, maybe not a different government, but we don't know who the minister will be at that time, but we will, we can certainly defer this to AMO if the warden feels it's better timing. Yes, warden.
To me, it's a timing issue, but I am just one person. I'm wondering, and I don't really want to put her on the spot, but if Director Lapine could just give us some insight into this as well from her perspective, I think that would be helpful. I think it's important to understand that Councillor Brose and I are on the same page. We're not adverse to this. To me, it's more about when we do it and what we're presenting and what our ask is at this point.
Through you, Chair, to committee, I can certainly speak to this. I think the points raised are excellent points. What I think committee needs to know is that with our daycares in Renfrew County, we are operating at about 80%, which means that we do not have all of our spots available. It is a staffing issue, but I think the issue is also well spoken to in terms of having more licensed home childcare spaces. We have had licensed childcare come on board in terms of licensed home, but we still have quite a few people who have not returned to the workforce. COVID is still an issue in terms of people returning to either opening their home or returning to the daycares. And while we have heard anecdotally that it could be a combination of low wages, it's also related to things like childcare for people who provide childcare and having access to other supports. So, I think the points around the national childcare strategy is also worth noting, that Minister Lecce has confirmed that Ontario is working on a plan for childcare for Ontario. They have not sorted out the details. And I think that that's something that we're still waiting news on. In terms of our childcare situation, we do have a wait list. We have quite a few people who entered childcare during emergency childcare that normally would not access licensed childcare, had private childcare in the past, but they entered through the emergency childcare and have chosen to stay on. And that is also impacting the amount of spaces available. I hope that is of assistance to your conversation. I'm open to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. Any other comments? So I kind of want to do a straw poll here to see, should we remove, and Paul's nodding at me, should we just remove Minister Lecce from this list and then vote on the resolution? Would that be acceptable, Mr. Morrow?
Sure.
Okay, so yes, Councillor Doncaster.
Sorry if I can get to my mute button. understanding committee makes recommendations to council, but might this not be beneficial if all of council was included in this discussion?
Unfortunately, the delegations have to be in by Monday.
Okay.
I just got an email from my CAO for my delegation, so we're all
Sorry,
sort of
I'm okay.
scrambling. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Donahue.
I do question, I'll defer certainly to Mr. Morrow. There was a recommendation read. I'm presuming it was moved and seconded, though I cannot say whether it was. If this is on the floor, we cannot deal with it through straw poll. It would have to be amended. And I think that would be appropriate in any event, given that, as the warden has said, as I have noted, I am certainly in the camp of the warden, pending further distillation of the causes. However, if it is the will of committee that this continue, then that can be expressed through a vote.
So, you know, Councillor Donahue is correct. If we're to follow procedure, absolutely, we would need an amending resolution, and the resolution would be that the list of delegations be amended to remove the proposed delegation to Minister Lecce. And then that would be the amending, and then we would vote on the resolution as amended.
I did get a mover and seconder, correct, Connie?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. The mover was Councillor Brose, and it was seconded by Councillor Peckett.
Thank you. So, yes, Councillor Donahue.
Just in following procedure, Madam Chair, I will move that the resolution with respect to the Roma delegations be amended to remove a delegation request with Minister Stephen Lecce.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder, please? Warden Robinson. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Now, Paul, do I have to have a vote on the original recommendation?
As amended, ma'am.
As amended. All right. So are the mover and seconder okay with that? I feel like, yes, Warden
Sorry,
Robinson.
we've lost Councillor Brose.
Yes, we have. I just noticed that.
This is a very important issue for him, so can we just maybe just take 5 and let him get back on?
Yeah, that's fine. I could use some water anyway. Okay. Sean, give us 5, okay? You welcome back, everyone, and welcome back, Councillor Bros. We see that you've moved to an alternative location. So because this is so important to you and your committee, we thought we should wait for the vote until you got back with us. So at this time, we are voting on the recommendation to, Paul, give me the right wording.
The recommendation, actually, we did the vote already on the first amending recommendation. We're now at the point where we are at the vote for the resolution as amended now.
Thank you. I lost the words. So with that, are the mover and seconder okay? That was Councillor Bros and Councillor Peckett. Excellent. All right, all in favor. Thank you. All right, bylaws. Mr. Morrow, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. In keeping with our succession planning and trying to give folks opportunities, there is a recommendation under number 4 that the revised bylaw to appoint a chief administrative officer and to define the duties thereof, appointing Mr. Craig Kelly as acting CAO for the period of January 1, 2022 to January 31st, 2022 be adopted at the next session of council.
Thank you. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the warden, seconded by Councillor Donahue. Discussion? Craig, are you up for the challenge?
I'm hoping there's no floods or pandemics. We'll be fine. You know, I'll be totally
Okay.
fine.
I didn't want to say it, but Shelley had to step in large during the flood.
Just got a
So
helicopter ride out of it, though. But no, I'm
Did
happy and
too,
honored.
yes.
I'm happy and honored to fill in where Mr. Morrow is not able to. Thank you very much.
excellent. Thanks, Craig. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. And
Thank you, Jared.
vaccination.
And I know this needs to go to county council, but I did want to, with committee, acknowledge Jeff, his efforts through the pandemic, helping me through this mess. We're not through it yet, but he's done his penance. So I really appreciate all that Jeff has done for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you for your service, Jeff.
If I may, Chair, I'll move on to item number 5.
Yes, please.
Shall I start by reading the recommendation?
Yes, please.
That the Finance and Administration Committee recommend the County Council approve the revised corporate policy G09 vaccination policy, and further that a bylaw to amend bylaw 63-03 being a bylaw to establish human resources corporate policies and procedures for the County of Renfrew be adopted at the next session of council. So if committee recalls, we had a considerable debate at the last meeting of County Council. Council's direction was for staff to incorporate provisions into the policy that would apply to members of council. We have done that, and that revised policy can be found on page 16 of your report. And we have taken, and under policy scope, we have indicated that this policy will apply to members of council. Members of council are now identified under policy definitions on page 17. And on page 18, it specifies how the policy will apply to members of council, and members of council will be required to complete a rapid antigen test and submit the results to the deputy clerk or designate within 48 hours prior to attending any in-person county function. Finally, with respect to testing provisions, council members will be required to submit. So again, just under testing reiterates that piece I just spoke to. Most importantly would be the enforcement provision, which is different for members of council than it is for staff, given the distinction in roles between elected officials and members of council. So committee is aware, I did seek some advice from legal counsel on this, our commissioner, our integrity commissioner, and he did provide me with the following wording that is attached included in page 21 under enforcement. And he just indicates vaccination reduces the chances that you will get sick or infected if you are exposed to COVID-19. Workplace control measures reduce the chance of being exposed to the virus. COVID-19 vaccines do not replace these measures. An alleged breach of this policy or any other County of Renfrew policy, control measure, or policy by a council member shall be treated as an alleged breach of the code of conduct. And he said, keep it simple and leave it at that, was his advice to us on enforcement. And I believe those are all the revisions to the policy, Chair.
Thank you. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Brose, seconded by Councillor Peckett. Discussion. Councillor Peckett.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, there's the testing for members of council are for those who are not double vaccinated?
That would be correct, sir.
Thank you.
Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just have a couple of comments. The first one, I think it's important for us to note under policy scope, bullet number 9 says privacy and confidentiality. And I think that's very important that, you know, you will not know whether or not I am double vaxxed or if I've got my rapid antigen test done. So I think that's extremely important that we respect people's choice and their privacy. And, you know, in reference to the Integrity Commissioner, it does seem like a really big hammer, but it takes out any bias of any other way of enforcement, that it removes all of us from the process and puts it where I think it needs to be. I highly doubt that we'll ever have to contact the Integrity Commissioner. Thank you.
Agreed. But I think it was important to include us. Any other comments? Councillor Donoghue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on the comment by the warden, unfortunately in this situation, and that's what I was describing at County Council, there is a different relationship between the county of the corporation of the County of Renfrew and the elected and the corporation of the County of Renfrew and staff. And the corporation of the does not have that authority to put council on unpaid leave, leaving a pretty big void in terms of any sanction. I do not anticipate this council that has demonstrated leadership in the past and will continue to demonstrate leadership. I do not anticipate that that is a likelihood, but because there is a different relationship and that the county does not have that authority over the elected, I think that unfortunately only leaves us in the position of having to go through the code of conduct and the integrity commissioner. It is certainly timely as we're discussing this now. Our neighbor to the east, the city of Ottawa, has in fact reinstated the salary for one of their councillors that was found to have been egregiously in contravention of their code of conduct. So I think that that is unfortunately the only means available whereby any sort of sanction could be taken.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. And the Municipal Modernization Fund.
Thank you, Chair. That's the final item, I believe, for my report, and it's item number 6. And with your permission, ma'am, I will read the recommendation.
Yes, please.
That the Finance and Administration Committee recommend the County Council adopt a bylaw to authorize the warden and the clerk to enter into a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the Municipal Modernization Intake Funding number 2. So this is for the digital strategy, and it's the bylaw to put in place the funding agreement for that project that I believe is currently underway.
Thank you. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Peckett, second by Councillor Sweet. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. The report as a whole. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, to accept the report as a whole? Councillor Brose, Councillor Donoghue. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And now we will move on to the Corporate Services Report. Mr. Foss, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the Finance and Administration Committee. So my report begins on page 24, but just before I begin, I do want to comment on the question raised with respect to vaccine hesitancy training. I took the opportunity during break to just follow up on where we're at with this process. We have distributed this training materials to a number of lower tier municipalities based on some requests that came in, but I don't believe that we've done this en masse to distribute to all of County Council. So I think what we may do or is simply include this information in our report that goes through to County Council this month, so that all members of County Council have the information. There are 3 different links to YouTube videos which contain the content of our training, as well as a couple of information sheets. And these are the same materials that we use in our vaccine hesitancy training program for our employees. And it has been in place for our paramedic service employees for a number of months already. So thank you for the question, and perhaps that's our best way to distribute that information. Item number 1 on page 24 is council remuneration as at September the 30th for your information. Item 2, similar to all other committees this week, the Treasurer's report for the 3rd quarter, September the 30th, is attached for the General Fund, Bonnechere Manor, Miramichi Lodge, our Public Works Division, as well as the Renfrew County Housing Corporation. Item number 3 is a snapshot, again, as at September the 30th, of COVID-19, its impacts on all of our operations, kind of highlighted for you by department, whether they be compensation costs or direct payments to vendors for goods or services, as well as a variety of funding initiatives that we are using to offset the costs of all COVID-19 mitigation strategies. And so that is there for your information as well. Item number 4, and I believe on the call today, we do have Ashley Wilton, and I'm very pleased to announce that Ashley Wilton has accepted our offer in the position of Provincial Offences Act Manager. Ashley, of course, is no stranger to us at the County of Renfrew or in corporate services, and has been working in that division since 2003. So lots of years of experience, and so congratulations to Ashley. We had quite a widely contested competition. We had 51 applications that came in for this, and Ashley went through the entire process, as did a number of other selected individuals. And so we're really pleased that Ashley was successful and has accepted this position. And so it's very new to her, obviously. So last week, we said goodbye to Jeanette Poole, our former POA manager. And so Ashley has been in this role only for a number of days. And so welcome, Ashley, and thanks for being on the call this morning. Item 5, corporate services. Then on a quarterly basis, we're bringing forward key performance indicators for the finance, human resource, information technology, as well as the Provincial Offences Court. And so they are there for your information. Item 6, some workload information. Typically, we bring forward the very first chart under item 6, giving you a sense of the activity that's taking place and sort of somewhat the return to a normal level of functioning within POA courts, although we are not yet in-person courts. We are virtual court sessions. But you can see in the months of July, August, September, and October, October ending at 847 charges. So that puts us on pace to about 10,000 charges per year, which is pretty much on our standard, if you will. So that is a return to some healthy activity within the POA department. Item 7, as requested by this committee, is a special chart that we have been tracking since earlier in this year, attempting to predict the impact of the court closures as a result of the pandemic. And as you will see in the month of October, we have 1,001 charges that are in backlog. And given the number of days that are court days that are available to us, we anticipate we need 42 court days to clear the backlog. And at our current rate, 14 months in order for us to accomplish this. To date, from March until October, we have 19 court sessions that have been canceled in the county of Renfrew. And this committee is very aware of the reasons behind that. Certainly the appointment of a number of justices of the peace earlier this year will help to reduce that backlog and all of those charges. However, we have been cautioned that it's about a 1-year delay before those new justices are available to hear matters in POA courts. And so although the cavalry is coming, they're not yet at the scene. So we anticipate that happening very soon. Item number 8, then on August the 25th, that session of County Council, there was a resolution that we send a letter to the Renfrew County and District Health Unit requesting a meeting to discuss our financial challenges in the 2021 and 2020 years, as well as getting some sense of the funding challenges that may be before us in 2022. And attached as appendix number 9 is a copy of the response that was received, along with the, I believe we also included the September 28th Board of Health minutes, where discussion took place regarding this particular matter. Item 9 is really an update on some of the activities that are taking place with your Renfrew County clerks and treasurers, and specifically with I'm going to call it a finance subcommittee meeting. So we held a meeting in October virtually with all of your local municipal treasurers, and we discussed a number of items. This committee requested that we table the information that we received from our one investment presentation that came forward to committee. And so we reviewed that presentation and had some discussions kind of moving forward with respect to what the county was doing with our changes to our investment policy. We also had a presentation from Municipal Tax Equity Consultants. Earlier this year in the spring session of our meeting with all the treasurers, there was a concern that was raised. This was not the first time, but a repeated concern about the pending reassessment and the appeals that we anticipate that will come from this next reassessment process. And so this group asked me to reach out and contact a number of organizations who assist municipalities with this sort of work. And we received a couple of interested parties, but certainly MTE prepared a proposal to us and was willing to meet with all of the treasurers virtually and kind of discuss what they felt would be a county-wide approach to dealing with this assessment, this pending assessment issue. Most of that work has to do with functions that they're fairly familiar with. This would be an assessment rule audit and study to see if in fact the current assessment base is correct and valid and can be justified. If they, and typically they do find some issues with the current assessment rule, then there's some remediation efforts that they can assist us with on a countywide basis. And then there's a whole education session that they have planned for your local treasurers. They call it a knowledge transfer, but really preparing your treasurers to be able to analyze some of the appeals that we anticipate coming forward and whether or not we have sufficient grounds to participate in that appeal process. And so they have an estimate of a cost for the county of Renfrew at $22,200. And so I have committed to your local treasurers to add that item on the 2022 county budget as an item for this committee to consider. So that is included in what I believe will be the draft budgets that will come forward for your consideration in the month of January. We also had a presentation by MPAC, and so Ms. Jennifer Grunts, the account manager for MPAC, participated virtually and was able to give us a bit of an update on MPAC activities. However, no news has been forthcoming on the next valuation date for the current value assessment process. So for the years 2022 and 2023, we will still be using market-based assessment of 2016. So the province did commit to making a decision about this sometime in the fall. The fall is really kind of running out, but they have provided notice that for 2022 and 2023 taxation years, there will be no update to the current value assessment process. We talked about a bunch of other things, our industrial ratio phase-in for 2022, multi-class ratio, Ontario Reg 58817, and asset management planning, just to ensure that all of your treasurers are well aware of what the regulations say and what we have to plan for. So really just a good session with all of your local treasurers. On November the 4th, we did receive an update from MFOA, and it is their summary of the fall economic statement from the province of Ontario, and we attached that as Appendix 12. Item number 11 is really an update for you. We did receive a presentation. This committee received a presentation from a company called Bus Patrol and their Stop Arm Camera program, which is in operations in a number of states in the United States. And we did have a local OPP constable who was quite interested in this project for Renfrew County. And so we had a presentation from them. This committee directed that we seek additional information to better understand what this platform looked like and the modeling that would took place. We did in October receive a draft agreement from Bus Patrol. The Renfrew County Joint Transportation Consortium also received a presentation by Bus Patrol, and they have received a draft agreement as well. So the next step was really just setting up a meeting to really understand our obligations specific to this agreement that's before us. And so I've set up a meeting on November the 16th to move the conversation forward. We are somewhat concerned is that Bus Patrol does not operate in any other jurisdiction anywhere in Ontario. And so they are certainly looking for a municipality to pilot this project. There have been discussions that I'm aware of with large regional governments in Ontario, but those discussions have not moved forward in any practical way. And so we will take a very hard, long look at what are the requirements for the County of Renfrew if we were going to move this forward. It seems somewhat onerous, specifically on our small provincial offenses admin staff. And so I will bring a follow-up report back to this committee with some recommendations based on the discussions that we'll have next week. Perhaps, Madam Chair, before I move into bylaws, maybe we could stop at that point.
Yes, please. Thanks, Mr. Foss. So we will go back to information item number 1, council remuneration. Number 2, the treasurer's report. Councillor Donoghue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I may have asked this question before. I will commit certainly to writing down the answer today so as not to do it again. Just in reviewing the report, I'm curious, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Funding is recognized as road revenue within operations, while the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly known as the Federal Gas Tax Fund, is recognized as other revenue within finance. I'm just wondering why the difference between those two infrastructure funds.
Mr. Foss.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the a bit of history, I suppose. So the gas tax program that was available to this municipality a number of years ago covered a number of potential capital investments by the county of Renfrew. And so when that funding was received, we placed that money into a reserve, and we had to make some decisions as a council to where we would invest those funds. And as it turned out, or as it has turned out, we made the decision to invest in public works, our linear assets and linear infrastructure, if you will. And each and every subsequent year thereafter, gas tax money was dedicated to our operations committee and our roads infrastructure renewal needs. And so I think it's a bit of history in that the money is received within the general revenue fund, as it was in those first number of years. And then we place that into a gas tax reserve. And then the Public Works Department has been the sole user of those funds on an ongoing basis. OCIF, given the nature of the eligible expenditures that were available for us to invest OCIF money, as an initial starting point, the decision was made that those eligible expenditures would include the capital program for the operations committee. And so those revenues from day one have been dedicated to move directly into our operations committee and the public works division financial statements. And each and every year they have simply resided there. So the federal gas tax fund is somewhat restrictive in that those funds that are not fully used in any particular year must be held in a separate account and attract interest and be reported therefore. And so we place those monies always into a gas tax reserve. And although rarely do we ever not spend the funds, there has been a number of times where we have had to attract interest on those amounts of money and report both to the province and the feds, as well as to county council on the interest that was accrued to be spent in a future period. Hope that answers the question.
Supplementary, Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It does. I'm presuming that it was the second part of the answer, the perhaps more stringent or constrained requirements vis-a-vis unspent funds. And just even on that, perhaps it's viewed as a reserve, but I think it was the audited financial statements of 2019 was the first. It's actually is now identified as deferred revenue as opposed to a reserve. So it is perhaps considered as a reserve, but it's recognized as deferred revenue now. But if at the genesis of this, it was because initially it was not presumed to be dedicated towards the capital that the operations committee perhaps engages in. By evolution, it has exclusively been used for that. So outside of perhaps the setting aside for interest-bearing purposes and reporting purposes, it seems that they are almost identical now, that if by evolution or by in practice, it is now dedicated to operations department, it seems just one more element that speaking on from my own position confuses how we are budgeting. If they're both essentially going to be dedicated to operations, it seems that they both should be recognized within the same sphere.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Through you to Jeff. On page 38 under human resources, salaries is 410,000 compared to a budget of 342. And if memory serves me correctly, I believe in the restructuring of the department, we added an HR person who is going to do work for the lower tier municipalities, and their salary would be offset by charge outs to the municipalities. So, well, first of all, I'm want to check with you and see if my recollection is correct. And secondly, if it is, I do not see any charge out unless it's in an account that I don't recognize.
Through you, Madam Chair. So on page 38, the Human Resources Department, so a couple of lines from the bottom where it says salary, that's the $68,010 variance. Committee may recall that our budget that was adopted in January of 2020 did not envision, if you will, two things. The first one would be, as Councillor Hunt mentioned, the addition to our workforce of one more HRC that would be dedicated to supporting our lower tier municipalities. That business plan was only approved in February, so following the adoption of our budget. And then it was some time to do some recruiting, et cetera. And so that individual joined our organization, I believe, in May, or maybe even in June of this current year. The other thing that's happened is that there was a discussion at the same time following our budget about an HR position that resided within the Paramedic Services Department. And so we had an opportunity really earlier this year to transfer that position from Paramedic Services into our Human Resources Department to a member of the Human Resources team. And so that position was added post-budget as well, really budgeted within the Paramedic Services Department and not budgeted within the Human Resources Department. And so we accomplished that transition sort of post-budget 2021, but the budget for 2022 will reflect where that individual is actually located and which department is their home department and where they're providing services from. So those would be two issues that happened sort of post-budget. The other thing that was requested was really just recovery from outside agencies, and that would be the revenue generated from any HR related activities for lower tier municipalities. We certainly had some in the month of September, but as discussed at the Operations Committee, I believe we just pulled together the costs and the billing information in the month following, so the October period, and that invoice has been created and charged into the month of October. So 1 month following the month of activity. So that'll be reflected in October's financial statements and every month therefore thereafter. Thank you.
Supplementary, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. So is it still the perception of the HR division that that salary will be able to be recouped? Has there been uptake from the lower tier municipalities on using this person? You know, the decision we made to add them and it being funded by the lower tier, do you see that being the correct decision?
Through you, Madam Chair. So really, the month of September was our target really to launch our program, if you will, sort of promoting HR services for lower tier municipalities. And I've been participating with Paul and Craig and the warden in a number of delegations, I guess, to our lower tiers, really just to launch or announce the program. And that was really been happening over the month of late in September and I guess early in October. To date, since that time, we have one engagement with Abbotston Bromley for some HR support for lower tiers. We also had a proposal in the month of September received by the town of Renfrew for a commitment of really 60% of this individual's time to support ongoing HR work within the town of Renfrew. So we've met with Councillor Emo, as well as with staff at within the town of Renfrew, and discussed sort of their requirements. And we've drafted a service level agreement for the town of Renfrew and sent it to them. And really their plan is to be engaged on a very significant basis beginning January the 1st. And moving forward, I think their plan is to secure our services for a 5-year period. And so that, although there could be some potential work in the month of December, I think the engagement will really start in January. So we're waiting for a response from the town of Renfrew on our service level agreement to ensure we understand the requirements of the engagement and so that we're able to move this forward. So I believe with that 60% of their time engaged fully with the town of Renfrew, that only allows us an ability of a couple of days a week to be working for other lower tier municipalities. And so we'll be presenting a budget in 2022 where we anticipate the revenues coming in from engagements with lower tiers will support the cost of that additional individual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Okay, and one more question on page 41 in the planning department. I had asked a few meetings ago about the revenues, about being able to clearly identify, you know, when we were working for lower tier municipalities. So on revenue municipal projects, we had budgeted $10,000. So that's all lower tier, I'm presuming. And then revenue service charges, is that all lower tier municipalities as well?
Through you, Chair. Well, specifically the $10,000 budget item for municipal projects was the planning department's anticipation of the local zoning work that would take place following the official plan. And with the delay, I guess, in the adoption of the official plan for the county of Renfrew, there's really been a delay in that subsequent work that needs to take place with respect to the planning department. And so I don't believe that we're going to realize the $10,000 budgeted revenue because of that fact. So that's really what's held within the municipal projects. Those are very specific engagements to support local planning, local zoning bylaws as a result of the official plan change. Other service charges, I would have to probably dig into that account a little bit. That's a bit of a catch-all. It has lots of information and lots of activity in there. I see Craig has appeared on the screen. Maybe he can provide a little bit of insight into us, but that's a fairly busy account for the planning department.
Go ahead, Craig, but to Jeff's point, Bonashir Valley is ready. And, you know, I'm sure we've got 10 grand to give the county to get our zoning bylaw up and running. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, we can't accept it before duties are done. I think municipal projects, I'm not sure if we've invoiced or not, but for example, that would be the Petawawa zoning bylaw that was just being completed, and that would be coming in there. Service charges, Jeff, I believe is things done for McNabb Braeside, for example, where we do a lot of work there, and that's where that's coming in, and other works done in that side of things, as well as other portion of fees that are paid by the applicants that go towards zoning bylaw reports, severance reports, subdivision report, all these other fees that your municipality through an application fee. Let's say it's $1,000, and there's a portion under our tariff fees that comes to us. You retain a piece, and we retain a piece, and that gets charged back to this amount. So that service fee is, as Jeff's point, is a bucket full of different fees that get charged out for a number of different services that we charge out.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I believe we're making decisions though about, such as we did in human resources, and I believe it was a good one to have a person on staff and have it then the lower tier municipalities be able to use them, and you can see it offsetting. I think that the revenue recouped from the lower tier municipalities, I don't think it should be combined in with other things. And this is what I brought up a few meetings ago. You know, if we're making a decision to add staff, such as we did a planner, you know, at the last county council, I think it should be very clear when we look at the financial report to be able to see, yes, we added it, so we see more salaries, but we do see the offset revenue coming in from the lower tier municipalities, because we don't have the ability to dissect that account. We're just looking at one number here. So I would really like to see, especially to the lower tier municipalities, the revenues and the recharges being separate. When I looked at strategy core, I believe that service charge in the past was all dedicated to various municipalities and not from applicants. So what I'm requesting is, if that service charges isn't purely lower tier municipality compensating the county for work done, that we consider separating it out so we can see that in the future, because we are making decisions to add staffing, and I think we should be able to see that, yes, what we decided is working and we are getting revenue to offset the expenses we're incurring.
Well, I agree with Councillor Hunt on this. I think especially with the amount of comprehensive zoning bylaws that the planning department is going to do over the next year, I think those monies should be separated out. Craig, did you have a comment?
I'm going to try to clarify this, and Paul and Jeff can help me out on this one. So, for example, if someone applies to remove a holding symbol on their application, for example, the fee that someone could pay a municipality is $700. The municipality, in their tariff of fees, charges that $700. However, there's a report generated from the County of Renfrew, a zoning report, that we charge $200 for that report to be generated to the municipality. But that's the difference. It's not to the municipality, it's to the municipality's applicant. Right? So Craig Kelly applies to remove a holding symbol on his property. We charge $200. The municipality charges $500. The applicant pays $500. But the municipality reimburses us for that $200 that's in our tariff of fees to do that. And all that whole fee, that $200 gets charged back and gets allocated to service charges. So it's actually not the municipality paying us for planning services. It's a municipality reimbursing us for planning services provided to the applicant at the municipal level.
Go ahead, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and that is what I'm suggesting. If the revenue is coming in from the applicant, that it be segregated and that we have a pure line for compensation from lower tier municipalities.
Through you, Chair, again, we'll work on maybe some of the wording. Those are special projects. It's the only time the municipality itself pays for anything is if we're working on a special project like a zoning bylaw. Right, where it's initiated by the township itself or the municipality itself, not an application. You're actually not, your levy is not paying for anything on planning unless it's a special project where it goes offside and asks for different planning advice.
Yes, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. I think Craig and Councillor Hunt are saying the same thing. Craig's just providing examples of where the revenue is coming from. I guess I want to look to Mr. Foss and ask the question, because first of all, we don't have a motion on the table right now to direct staff to do anything about this. But my question to Mr. Foss is, if there were to be a motion, what would that be? Would it be to have staff investigate how to segregate revenues and bring back a recommendation to committee? And I turn it over to Jeff for your comments, if you don't mind, Chair.
Please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So our financial reporting requirements already require us to separate provincial senior level government revenue, so federal government revenue or provincial government revenue, as well as revenue that we receive from other municipalities. And so that would be the municipal projects that Craig spoke about within the planning department. And what you will see within the human resources department is charges to other municipalities, and that would be sort of the revenue that we would earn, through that process. We have existing revenue accounts all throughout the financial statements for revenues that are coming from municipalities, but primarily what would stand out is our City of Pembroke revenue for shared services for a whole host of different departments. So that would be primarily our other municipal revenue, but there are some occasions where it happens in other departments as well. But we're already required, to Paul's question, we're already required to separate municipal revenue because we have to report on that within the FIRs and within our financial statements as well.
Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And once again, quite a fascinating debate discussion. It seems to me, and I certainly stand to be correct, but it seems to me that there may also be two elements. What Mr. Kelly is describing, if I may, from our township, of course, we second, or the county seconds, to Admast and Brumley Planning. They are our planners. So with respect to the example cited, the lifting of the holding or H designation, we simply receive the monies, the application and the fees associated with that from the proponent. And there is a cost internally to the township. There is also a cost to the county that is compensated out of that. That seems to be a different conversation than per se the engagement of a comprehensive zoning bylaw review, which is more akin to a purchase service. And I'm assuming that something like that, like as we see them across many of the particular sectors in the Treasurer's report, there are recoveries from the federal government, recoveries from the provincial government. There are recoveries from other departments of the county. It doesn't seem like on something such as that, which is a purchase service, to recognize that as recoveries from municipalities in addition to the two senior levels of government. I think that there probably it might lend itself to a distinction between kind of the county as our planners versus the county providing for a fee the review and update of our comprehensive zoning bylaws.
That was the road I was going down after Craig explained the removal of the holding symbol was an excellent example, that those monies don't come out of our levies, but the $23,000 that Bonashir Valley is going to pay the county for Bruce's expertise, that is a cost recovery. So I think that you've made that far clearer for me as well. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Well, and I see with revenue municipal projects, that's where that zoning bylaw will end up, if I understand correctly. But for example, McNabb uses the county planner and they attend their planning meetings and so on. And I believe that shows up under service charges. And if more of us start doing that, which I commend Tom on the astuteness in using it, because he's getting a planner and it seems like at a pretty good price. If more of us move that way, I just feel that we should have a pure number that the lower tier municipalities are contributing back to the planning department and not have it mixed in with monies that are paid by the applicant.
If I may, I think that this has been a very healthy debate. But I think maybe Councillor Hunt, if you would like to get together with Mr. Foss and Mr. Kelly and maybe put something together for the January FNA meeting at the request of the chair. I think that we certainly could clean this up a little bit, but I get where Mr. Foss and Craig are coming from. So if I may leave it at that. Yes, Mr. Morrow.
At the risk of saying something that's career limiting, my caution is I always like to see that direction to staff from committee at the very least, because it puts staff in the position that we have one member of council directing staff, and we all know that staff are directed from all members of council. So I would like to see that direction come from committee.
Then should that be a recommendation to county council?
I don't know if it needs to be a recommendation of county council, but at the very least, providing some direction to staff that is supported by committee to make that happen. And again, there's no decision being made. It's to have a conversation with one individual elected official about our county approach, and that's always my challenge.
Okay, would you like a motion for that? Yeah.
Yes, please, ma'am. My mute button seems to be getting stuck. Probably a good thing.
Sure it is, Paul. Sure it is. Others wouldn't believe you, but I do. Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for that staff direction? Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. All right. Anything further on the treasurer's report? Councillor, oh, sorry, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much. I'm not anticipating this having as much discussion as the last one. I just want around salaries as well. Refer to page 35 and the warden's salary and per diem. I check this all the time, and I am $7,625 over budget. So I tried to figure out what that was. So between the EOWC, AMO, and the AMO Health Task Force, those are 28 meetings that I've had in those alone. So that's where the per diem is a little higher than what would normally be in the case. But I think some people are too nice to say, how come we're paying the warden over the budget? So I just wanted to let everybody know. Thanks.
Way to fess up, Warden. I like it. All right. Yes, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. And just so committee is aware, the warden did bring that to my attention yesterday. I did have a conversation with Mr. Foss, and she is absolutely correct in her analysis of she is an extremely hardworking warden, and again, deserves to be compensated as per their bylaws. So that's what we have done, and that is a reflection of the level of effort the warden has been putting in with respect to attending these meetings. In my conversation with Mr. Foss this morning, we anticipate, or we're really hoping, that the warden backs off a little bit in the month of December, and there's fewer meetings in the month of December. So we're hoping that will ease up a little bit. So I will leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Agreed, and fingers crossed, Warden. Fingers crossed. All right. Anything further on the treasurer's report? Seeing none. The corporate financial summary. The POA administration manager. Is she still with us? Yes, she is. Welcome, Ms. Wilton.
Thank you.
Number 5, the key performance indicators. Councillor Brose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just looking at the, once again, the resignations, which are down 5%, which I guess is good news. My concern is that 69% of those resignations were from both of the, excuse me, long-term care homes. Are the new hires compensating for the resignations, or are we really in a challenging spot as far as trying to staff our long-term care homes?
That is an excellent question. Mr. Morrow, Mr. Foss, which one of you wants to take this? Go ahead, Paul.
I believe Mr. Blackmore is on the call with us, and I'd like to have Mike speak to that, because I know our PSW program, in fact, our administrator at Bonnechere Manor just did an interview on that very topic about the PSW program. and all our efforts. So I'd like Mike just to talk about that a little bit and about kind of where that balances out with the number of folks leaving versus the number of staff that are now becoming available to us.
By all means, and Mr. Blackmore, you might want to touch on a couple of the sort of, I hate to use the word bleak, but a couple of bleak circumstances that you gave us in Health Committee yesterday as well, if you don't mind.
Yes, through you, Chair, to Councillor Bros. I'm just going to grab my door, 1 sec. So I think it's no news to anyone that's recruiting in long-term care. It's been difficult even pre-COVID, and certainly the COVID circumstances have made it all the more demanding. And yes, both county homes have been very innovative with regard to the recruitment efforts, engaging in a variety of different programs, from basically running your own classroom out of Montshire Manor, and it's something that the Lodge is looking at doing as well. Hiring resident aides and having them bridge into PSW positions. I think for the most part, the challenge is it's not unique to our two homes. It's not unique to the county, for that matter. It's across the province, across the nation, with regard to health, human resources challenges in these COVID times. Certainly the province recognizes as much by way of introducing wage enhancements and putting a bunch of money our way with regard to training and things like this. And we certainly are taking advantage of each of those opportunities. But the work, it's challenging work, it's difficult work. And in the absence of full complement, it's made that much more challenging. And keeping in mind that another factor we're dealing with is the mandatory COVID vaccine that's going to be upon us shortly, whereby if you're not vaccinated, you're essentially not working, you're on a leave of absence. So it's basically, it's been a challenge for years, and it's become all the more of a challenge more recently. People leaving the position, I think what we're finding is there's an awful lot of attention put on the PSW position, i.e. something for you to try out, perhaps. And we're certainly, the colleges are ramping up their engagement with the community and getting people to entertain taking the PSW course. And what we're finding is, for some, it's not what they thought it was going to be. And not everyone's staying with us. It's something we continue to work with. And just as recently as yesterday, Kim Saunders, Administrator Montshire Manor, was interviewed by CTV, and it indicated, just gave an overview of our efforts to do recruiting and retention and the challenges particularly that faced at Montshire Manor, whereby at the moment, there are 16 vacant PSW positions. Now that is not necessarily permanent positions, which makes it that much more of a challenge, in that a number of these positions are temporary, i.e. people out of the workplace that are still employees, and that much more difficult to backfill for those types of positions. At Miramichi Lodge, it's a little better in that we've got one permanent part-time PSW vacancy, but we do have between 10 and 12 positions, temporary positions to fill. So this has been an ongoing challenge for years. And again, it's just been exacerbated by the current conditions of COVID. And I recognize that I do think things will get better with the investments that the province is making with regard to recruitment and getting us to where we need to be with those 4 hours of resident care per day, because when that environment does finally exist, or even as we approach it, the type of work that's being done, it's more manageable when you have more staff on hand to do the work. And I expect that as we ratchet up and get to those levels, we're going to find maybe perhaps that person who might have left, finding it too challenging in those circumstances may be more likely to stay.
So much for that. it's not a good situation, that is for sure. And I mean, all we've heard is about burnout from so many of our healthcare providers, our first responders. So thank you so much. Councillor Sweet.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I appreciate what Mike has said about staffing and the loss of staff, and certainly COVID over the last little while hasn't made these things any easier. But I think it's a lot broader than that at the municipal level, particularly at the lower tier in terms of staffing in all departments, from the very top CEOs right down to superintendents at public works or chief building officials, clerks, you name it. We were warned about this or cautioned about this by Jim Pine and Tony Haddad 7 years ago, that there was a looming crisis coming, and we're here now. The tsunami, as he indicated back then, was going to hit us in 7 years. Well, we're here. COVID has made it certainly an awful lot worse with the various funding initiatives coming out from the federal and provincial governments to assist, which was very important back then. But I am just a little bit concerned about where we're going, because we're all chasing each other. And it seems to me that at times we're robbing one to pay for the other, getting, you see this all happening all the time. You know, this employee leaves to go somewhere else, and we backfill by doing things to other municipalities. I would like to see AMO take a bigger role and trying to promote individuals getting into the municipal cycle as far as the employment is concerned. And I don't see that as a priority coming out of any of the initiatives that AMO has talked about in the last little while, but it is a crisis. Chief building officials are very difficult to get. CEOs are difficult to get. Qualified individuals come into the municipal environment. PSWs, I watched that interview on CTV this morning, Mike. Long-term care. We just heard about getting childcare workers, et cetera, I think that our national, our provincial body has a bigger role to play in promoting the values of working in the municipal sector. And I don't see that happening at this point in time. And it's only going to get worse as we go forward. So I would hope that that they pick up the ball and start running with this, because it's going to be a challenge for all the lower tier municipalities to get qualified staff to do the job. And they're not seem to be encouraged to get into to that environment.
Couldn't agree with you more. Councillor Brose.
Yes, thank you. And through you to Mr. Blackmore, thank you so much for that update. I guess my concern once again is in the fall economic statement, the government has announced more money for long-term care beds. However, again, I'm hearing that the challenge is how do we staff those additional beds, especially based on the current crisis that we're experiencing. And once again, through you, Chair, to Mr. Blackmore, is the shortfall of staff addressed through overtime for the others, or do you just go without?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Brose, certainly we'll engage overtime, in the interest of maintaining the care level always before going short.
Warden.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to Councillor Sweet's comment about AMO promoting working in the municipal sector. I will promise to bring that forward, Mayor Sweet. We have a county caucus meeting, so I'll be interested to see the comments from the county caucus members. I suspect that they're probably, as you say, experiencing the same thing, and I'll bring it forward to the next AMO board meeting for a discussion.
That would be fantastic. Yes, Councillor Sweet.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I think that's very important. I'd like to see AMO or all those organizations engaging the community colleges, the universities to develop programs that will encourage young people to get into it. as indicated by Jim Pine way back when, somewhere in the region of 70 to 80,000 employees over the next 2 years will be gone out of the environment. And if there's nobody coming in at the bottom end of this, and that was certainly some of the statistics that he indicated to us, only 3 or 4% of individuals are coming into the industry. That doesn't hold well for the future of municipalities and their need for qualified individuals. So I appreciate that. I think that's a role that they can and should be playing, quite frankly. So I appreciate that going forward to AMO or FCM or anyone promoting the municipal environment.
Thank you. So anything further on number 5? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, because my point was not on this, but on the conversation that's just ended. I think something to keep in mind too is that COVID has disrupted our economy cataclysmically. I think you would have to go back to the financial crisis of 08-09 probably to have found such a disruptive factor globally as COVID, because these long-standing issues are going to be much more complicated, because even so-called normal, whatever normal is, when it's declared normal, when the WHO perhaps declares the end of the pandemic, we are so far removed from 2019 that that's not where we're going back to. We are seeing that in the broader economy, whether it is just municipalities or not. We are seeing incredible disruption, which was initially attributed and continues to somewhat to be attributed to the substantial supports that were put in place by federal and provincial governments. But that's not answering the full question. People are reevaluating. They have had an opportunity to reevaluate. I don't know what normal is going to look like when we get back there, but it's going to look nothing like normal was in 2019 before COVID was invented. In any event, my comment was specifically to the finance key performance indicators. And I note that there is included there the chart on the target, the levy target. And I did take this up when we first saw that particular chart in August at our Finance and Administration Committee, and had noted there that that's not really a departmental performance indicator, as that is set at the discretion of council. Mr. Foss certainly, and I acknowledge and I'm in agreement that certainly the long-term financial plan is a key document. And as Mr. Foss had indicated at that meeting in August, there are the levy is a key element. However, of course, there are 9 elements, 9 or 10 elements to the long-term financial plan. I wonder actually, Madam Chair, if just very briefly, if you would allow me to share my screen.
I absolutely will, but I don't have control of it. Where's Connie or Rose?
You should be able to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone see that? Can anyone see that?
Yes, we can.
There's a thumb. Thank you. I thought perhaps I had lost connectivity. Anyway, those are the elements of the long-term financial plan. It is a comprehensive listing. So I think in identifying that, either the key performance indicators, in my estimation, should be bringing forward charting on all of the elements or none of the elements, because certainly the chart as included in today's report, KPI report, is accurate. There is no question, but I think it is somewhat prejudicial. I'll just go back. You note the county levy increase is shown here in red, but the minimum annual provincial funding is shown here on this line. The target was 500,000. So I'll just give you, that's what the performance has been on our provincial grant target since 2014, and in fact 2015, when the long-term financial plan was adopted, which has vastly exceeded the target. What I'd also, for those of you who may not yet be aware, the province has now committed to doubling essentially of the OSIF formula funding for the next 5 years. They will certainly be limited perhaps by the election in June. But for 2022, at the very least, this number right here, which is 1.357 million for 2022, is going to be doubled. If in fact this government is returned to power, they have committed to doubling that over the course of the next 5 years. That will yield just under 2.7 million when the target was $500,000. So if the intent is to indicate all of the long-term financial plan and the elements therein, I think it would behoove not to be prejudicial in showing a single red spot amongst the whole of the plan, and the other one, which I have routinely provided to council or to committee, is this one. This is the target in blue. This is the actual in green. I would likewise not invite any of the council just to see any one of these by itself, but the whole of the long-term financial plan. I would certainly suggest that the just under $250,000 that was not provided for in the levy target of 2.5 versus 3 is going to be more than made up in the 2.7 million of provincial grant formula grant money that we are going to be receiving at the very least in 2022. So once again, if the commitment is to demonstrate the elements of the long-term financial plan, then it would behoove the report to indicate the performance on all of these, not a singular item. Thank you for thank you for allowing me to share, Madam Chair.
All right. Mr. Foss, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. If the request from this committee is to eliminate or to add a number of other indicators, certainly staff are happy to do that.
So, Councillor Donahue, would you like to make that motion as staff direction?
I would actually. I'm from the perspective of the key performance indicators of the finance department. The long-term financial plan is absolutely at the discretion of council each and every year. We do by resolution in September adopt that. So I would recommend the performance indicator on the levy target be removed as a chart.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Councillor Brose. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that carries. Thank you. Anything further on number 5? Moving on to everybody's favorite division, POA. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, I could not seem to find the mute button. I'm pretty sure that the warden actually has a control panel there. Very pleased to hear from Mr. Foss that we seem to be returning kind of to typical statistics vis-a-vis the charges laid, et cetera. Just I'll bring forward also the Treasurer's report. We're seeing presumably that will end now, but through the 3 quarters presented today, we are seeing just under a 20% drop in fines. And that is significant when one sees 4 or 5% change in long-running data. Those are also indicative of significant change. So there is an unlikelihood that we will recover those 20% of fines, but pleased nonetheless to see a return somewhat to typical patterns.
I also noted that that 20%, it's not good. All right, anything further on 6 or 7? Seeing none. Moving on to 8, the RCDHU funding formula. Councillor Peckett.
Thank you, Chair. I moved down to the letter that the warden returned, or was returned to the warden by the health unit. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear about this. In their letter, they're saying they're reminding the county that as an autonomous board, they have the responsibility and authority under the Health Promotion and Protection Act to manage our financial affairs. And they want to say, take it responsibility and non-present. Does that also give the health unit the right to set the amount of increase that they receive from the county of Renfrew each year? Because it's been going up at 8 and 10% annually, whereas our municipalities and our county has been told to find efficiencies and reduce costs and to try and keep, and we're all trying to keep our tax rates down in areas. And yet it seems to me that the health unit is dictating the amount of money that the county has to give to them. And in my opinion, they should be given the increase parallel to what the county levies to all the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the increase, the maximum is 10%, but I am going to defer this to Councillor Donahue because he's been on the Board of Health far longer than I have. So thank you for the question, Councillor Peckett. Go ahead, Councillor Donahue.
So I am by attrition, Councillor Peckett, I'm the designated answerer. The short answer, we'll start there, yes. The Health Protection and Promotion Act does absolutely give absolute discretion to this or any Board of Health, the setting of the required funds. It is similar in that event to conservation authorities. There are no conservation authorities extant in the county of Renfrew, so it is not something that we are familiar with. That has sometimes been a source of frustration, irritation, anxiety in those municipalities that do. So we will have to confine this to the discussion of funding of public health. On the second point, I will note that there was a substantial increase in 2020 that, as I have indicated at prior committee meetings, was entirely driven by the cost sharing formula being altered by the province. The move from a 75-25 split to a 70-30 split. In fact, the province mitigated in 2020 a substantial increase. I think probably instead of it being a 10% increase, it might have been closer to a 50% increase to the county of Renfrew. Yet the province continued on a one-time basis that has now gone on for 3 years to mitigate that, to offset the cost share allocation. What I would like to draw certainly to committee's attention as well, if one goes back far enough, I've been on the Board of Health now since 2015. I think probably from 2015 through to 2018 or 19, there was essentially no increase. If one certainly compares the course of the last 6 or 7 years, it probably is more in line with the percentage increase of the levy. I don't know that there's much more in that. Certainly in reviewing the minutes, the committee will note that I did introduce a motion. I felt that there certainly was opportunity for a discussion between the two corporations, that is the corporation of the Renfrew County District Health Unit and the corporation of the County of Renfrew, through the various parties identified in the warden's letter. I think that is appropriate because the members of the County of Renfrew that are delegated to sit as Board of Health members, just as we, as representatives of our particular communities, when we are here at the County of Renfrew, we are county councillors. There may be instances that come forward that may not be particularly good for our municipalities, but they may very well be good for the County of Renfrew. Likewise, when we are at the Board of Health, it is in the best public health interests of the community served by Renfrew County District Health Unit. So in essence, that's why I made the motion that there was no, in my estimation, there should be no impediment to entering into those conversations with the warden and senior staff and the treasurer of, the chair of Finance and Administration on a corporate level. That was unsuccessful. Certainly the authority of the Board of Health, the Public Health Unit, to set its required levy remains there regardless of when the meeting would be held. I just thought that it would be a good signal to engage the two bodies at a senior elected and staff position that was unsuccessful in the event.
And I was one of the people that upheld Michael's suggestion. I didn't feel that it would be an intrusion with the health unit. I thought that opening up lines of communication is always a good thing. It was taken more in line with that there would be interference in setting the budget, which was not the case in my estimation. But I did see Councillor Doncaster's hand up, so I will yield to him.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Councillor Donohue's statements and agree with what he has just said. I think it's important that we recognize and understand that the Board of Health or Public Health is its own entity. It is autonomous. The board is autonomous from the County of Renfrew, keeping in mind some of the analysis that we've had over the past year or two, being the shift in the cost sharing model from any programs that were 100%, I'm not sure how much they changed, but from the 75-25 to 75-25 to 70-30, and the impact that has on public health's budget. Also, we should also recognize that through the county's modernization and the changes that we've made forced or caused the health unit to have to relocate, and there was certainly cost associated with that. I would encourage that we continue down the road of shared communications. I think that's good. You know, we need to work together, the County of Renfrew and the Renfrew County District Health Unit, to the benefit of all the residents of Renfrew County. And I think, I don't think there's any question that we've been in some really difficult times over the past 19 months. And I would say that that the health unit in Renfrew County has done an excellent job in the pandemic response and trying to keep the programs that they have going, and so on and so on. So I just wanted to acknowledge that Councillor Donohue's comments, and the fact that we have 4 members of this body that sit on the Board of Health. Councillor Donohue's correct. They are representatives of the Board of Health when they were there. I would point out that just in the review of the last few sets of minutes, not only the ones that we have now, but previously, there's been a number of occasions where Councillor Donohue's comment doesn't seem to be the fact. And if you look at those minutes, there are recorded votes where the only people that voted in favor of something or opposed to something were the 4 members appointed by the County of Renfrew on the Board of Health, which seems to me to indicate that there's some type of divide there. I'm not sure exactly what, but as I say, shared communications and working together, I think is important. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Councillor Peckett.
Thank you, Chair. So from what I'm understanding, and I did read the minutes and that, and saw right away that the 4 council members that's sitting on the board were united in trying to work with the health unit, hopefully to try and make things a little more cooperative, should I say. It looks to me and the votes that there is, as long as there's 6 on the Board of Health and 4 on Renfrew County, that there isn't going to be any particular way for the county to move forward. I did note that they said that they possibly could meet with the warden and others sometime in the new year, not committing to the meeting nor a date. Found the tone of the entire letter back to the warden actually quite rude, in my opinion. But I do acknowledge the work that they do for Renfrew County. And I also do acknowledge the work that Chair Donahue on the Health Committee does for the county in this process. I just, so I guess understanding what's going on, Renfrew County Board of Health can just ask the county for a blank check of whatever amounts that they feel necessary to spend and move forward from there. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that. And I hope that through some meetings with the board, that something better can be worked out, realizing that, yes, we've been going through the pandemic now, but in the next few years, I would hope to see a substantial reduction in the request for funds from the health unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't wish to belabor this point too long, but I think that there's been a door opened by each of my colleagues, Councillor Doncaster and Councillor Peckett, that I can provide some clarity. I have always approached this as a member of the Board of Health, when I am at the Board of Health, and it is with respect to governance, with respect to recognizing the funding partners, that is the province of Ontario, the township of South Algonquin, the county of Renfrew, and the city of Pembroke. If it is perceived, whether by Councillors Doncaster or Peckett, as this is a clique, if you will, from the county, nothing is further from the truth. I do not discuss anything that I raise at the county of Renfrew has never been discussed prior to, at the health unit, has ever been discussed with any of the other 3 members appointed by the county of Renfrew. When I bring something forward there, it is not as a member of the county of Renfrew, it is as a member of the Board of Health. It is perceived, I will acknowledge, it is perceived at the Board of Health that there seems to be some sort of concerted effort by the county. That is untrue, and I will certainly avail myself of this particular pulpit here today to reject that utterly. I cannot control how others perceive. That is not the intent whatsoever. I wish to suggest to this committee, I think that perhaps one of the sensitivities at the health unit is based on the comments that Councillor Peckett has brought forward, which is they have the absolute authority and discretion to set the levy target. And I think that there is suggestion here of interference. I don't see meeting with them as interfering, but the comments that somehow the city or the county of Renfrew should be imposing on the health unit a reduction in their required levy is outside the authority of the county of Renfrew. By the same token, I wish to correct something that Councillor Doncaster has suggested. It certainly was, I will acknowledge that it was perceived that the county of Renfrew caused the health unit to relocate. So I think it's important to set that record straight. The county of Renfrew was the landlord to Renfrew County District Health Unit. The lease at 7 International Drive was just renewed in 2016. At the time that it was renewed, the notice to tenant, the period by which either party could inform the other of an intent to vacate, was increased from 6 months to 12 months. So like any other landlord, that clause was contained therein. The county, in fact, did not do that. In January of 2019, it apprised in a letter by Mr. Morrow of the intent to repatriate the dispersed county services that were dispersed in the city of Pembroke back into the county administration building. In that letter, it was extended to work with the health unit to identify what we may be able to satisfy in the redesign and redevelopment of this building, and perhaps offer alternative space at either of the Renfrew or Arnprior facilities. There was considerable discussion back and forth that ultimately did not terminate until October of 2019, wherein the Board of Health, of their own volition, decided that the space that was on offer from the county of Renfrew was not going to meet their needs. So from that, it is a mischaracterization to suggest that the county caused the health unit to relocate to 141 Lake Street. That would remove essentially the agency of the Renfrew County District Health Unit that was entirely in control of what their future requirements and lodgings would be, and they exercised that. So I think it is incumbent upon this entity, that is the Corporation of the County of Renfrew, and the entity that is the Corporation of the Renfrew County District Health Unit, to respect those individual obligations, responsibilities, and the agency of each.
Thank you for that. Is there anything further? Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much. And listening to the discussion, and I don't want to write another letter. We're just sending letters back and forth to each other. It's getting ridiculous. What I would like to do is just reach out to the chair of the Board of Health and just have a conversation, her and I, try to figure out if there's some way forward to fix this relationship, and if there's a desire to do so. If there is not, then that's fine too, and we will just continue on the path that we've seemed to have been on for quite some time.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. Councillor Sweet, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I applaud the warden for making that move and trying to move forward. Let me just say to you, I go back to the year 2000, and the very first committee I sat on or was appointed to was the health unit. There was a problem back there with the funding and putting money into reserves, and every so often it would flare up, and there was this argument back and forth, and it's been going on like that for the last 20 odd years. I don't know what the solution is. Certainly communications are very, very important. At one time, the health unit had $3 million or thereabouts in reserves, almost more than we had in reserves. And we managed to get that back, and it was held there for programs that may have come not be funded by the province, etc. This has been ongoing for 20 odd years, certainly from the time that I've been on county council. So I think there's got to be an overture that has to be made, and find out how do you solve this? I mean, this goes on every so often, it flares up, and there've been many attempts to try and smooth this over and try and get some sort of understanding of cooperation between the two bodies. And I know, Jennifer, you probably tried, Janice tried, I tried, Peter tried, Debbie. I wish you all the very best going forward, talking to them. But they are difficult. They march to the beat of their own drum, so to speak. And but nonetheless, I think it's important that we try and have a chat about all of these things. That what is it that bothers you, or try to get to the bottom of it. And I think I applaud the effort that is being made, or attempted to be made, to try and still the water, so to speak, and try to get back on a more acceptable level of understanding between the two bodies. So I would support what you're trying to do there, Warden.
Thank you for that. At that, I think that this has been a healthy discussion. We're going to take a 15-minute break. I know we're going into lunchtime, but I think if we can come back at noon, I think we can be wrapped up by 12:30. So if everybody wants to go and grab a snack, a bio break, coffee, what you need. And Sean, if you could take us down till noon. Thank you, everybody. I hope you all had a nice little break. At that, we will move on to number 9, the County Clerk Treasurers Association's Finance Subcommittee. Any comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Hunt.
Yes, thank you. I'm pleased that we're going to look at this. And now there was a mention about appeals, but are we going to, or if the budget is approved, I hope we'll consider doing a review of some of the past cases. I know we had one in our township that disturbed me, and I didn't feel that MPAC were qualified to stand up against the consultants who were working on behalf of the taxpayer. Anyway, and we also have the big box stores. So I hope there's going to be a general review of where we lost major funding dollars over the last few years. But I think this is a great endeavor.
I do too. Councillor Doncaster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. I just wondered how many attendees there were.
Through you, Chair, I believe we had 22 on the call. Some municipalities had more than one representative, and we didn't have all municipalities, but we issue minutes of the meeting, the notes for the meeting following the meeting, so we can certainly have a look at that. But that was they're generally really well attended, lots of good content, lots of discussion. So.
Anything further? Moving on to number 10, MFOA. Number 11, the Bus Patrol Stop Arm campaign. All right, then let's move on to, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Doncaster.
Mute button. Yeah, I just had a couple questions. One, well, first comment. It was at last Roma conference. I attended one of the sessions from Bus Patrol and found it quite interesting. Their website is pretty good, and I know Mr. Foss had mentioned that he thought that there would be some significant costs for our POA staff, and I'm not sure. I mean, that's up to them to figure that out. But he also mentioned that they're looking for a guinea pig. I was under the impression that Mattawa has already implemented this program, and in fact, I had some notes that they had installed these systems in December and started using them in January of this year. So, you know, if that's true, then there certainly may be some information to be gleaned from there. It is certainly about safety, and as far as costs for the systems go, I know that there's no cost involved in that, but there may be some back end costs that Mr. Foss was mentioning. So.
I was under the same impression that there was already a pilot project in the province of Ontario. I thought that was the presentation that we heard, but I could stood corrected. Mr. Foss?
Thank you, Chair. And that was certainly our hope, that we would have another jurisdiction that we could reach out to speak with. Our meeting early October with Jean Soulier, who is their president, indicated that although there's tremendous interest from a number of municipalities, they did not have a signed agreement that we could use as our benchmark to move forward on. And so I've relayed to them our concerns about attempting to pilot this when some of the larger municipalities, although have showed lots of interest, have not moved forward with an agreement. You know, so there's from a cost perspective, there's certainly, their whole proposal is a revenue sharing proposal, so that the revenues that would be generated by the Highway Traffic Act fine infractions would be shared between Bus Patrol and the County of Renfrew. And one would think then there could be sufficient fine revenue to cover our costs. But it goes deeper than that. And just giving you one example of one of the elements of the agreement, proposed agreement, is that the County of Renfrew would provide a sufficient number of qualified evidence technicians to timely review each potential violation, and that is from 86 or 87 different cameras that are operating on every bus in Renfrew County, and approve the issuance of a notice of violation and input, and then, from that create the evidence file and reach out with the evidence file to the potential violator who's been captured in the video. There's just a significant number of steps that we are not engaged in within our POA office that are proposed in the agreement. So there's lots of ground that we have to cover in order to really understand what Bus Patrol is requiring from us. They seem to feel that the County of Renfrew would take the lead on this and not the consortium that actually owns and operates the buses. So there's lots of ground for us to cover in this issue. If in fact they do have something with Mattawa, I think that's fantastic. But they certainly have not relayed that information to us as of early October.
Well, and now listening to what you just read us, Jeff, now I understand the reticence of other municipalities. That sounds like a lot of work.
And currently all of those infractions in Renfrew County are laid by the enforcement agencies, which are either the Deep River Police or the Ontario Provincial Police. They are looking to transfer that responsibility to a municipal partner, be it the County of Renfrew, for us, through the Administrative Monastery Penalties program to take over that responsibility. So it's a whole new concept. And again, as a small POA office with very few staff, this would, if we have our bigger players in Ontario who have shied away from it, it's difficult for us to be the pilot to kind of forge this ahead in Ontario. Bus Patrol is operating in several jurisdictions in the US, and they are certainly looking to get into the Ontario market. Anyways, I think we'll have more to provide once we have our meeting on the 16th.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything further on Bus Patrol? Seeing none, let's move on to bylaws.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So page 29, the first bylaw, and I'll just read it out, is that the Finance and Administration Committee recommend that a bylaw be adopted at the next session of County Council to authorize the Corporation of the County of Renfrew to enter into an agency agreement between Chums Financing Corporation and Local Authority Services, that's LAS, and eligible investors with respect to the One Investment Program. And of course, this follows on the presentation that we had in September. In October, we made some changes to our investment policy to allow this to be feasible under policy. And so the third step in the process would be essentially to enter into an agreement to open an account, if you will, and go through that process, not dissimilar to any individual opening an account with your investment broker. We need to open an account with One Investment for the potential future investment with some of those eligible investment categories that we reviewed with this committee last month. So that's really the concept that we're providing to move forward with, if approved by this committee and then County Council.
Thank you. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Peckett, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Comments, questions, concerns? All in favor? Wonderful. And number 13.
Very pleased to bring this forward to committee, and the recommendation is that the Finance and Administration Committee recommend that a bylaw be adopted at the next session of County Council, authorizing the warden and clerk to enter into a memorandum of understanding between our corporation and the city of Pembroke for shared cost services with respect to long-term care homes. And this committee will be well aware of historically some of the challenges that we have had with the 1971 agreement to cost share any municipal residual costs between our two corporations based on a resident census that we take place at December the 31st each year, and based on the percentage of residents that are in that are coming admitted to the home from the city of Pembroke or from the county of Renfrew, we allocate the following year's municipal costs based on that 1 day's snapshot in time. The city of Pembroke, on a number of occasions, has looked to us to renegotiate this agreement. And in fact, in 2020, at a session of County Council, we did agree to a freeze on the resident population for a 2-year period. And that really followed a significant swing in costs that went to the county of Renfrew 1 year and went against the city of Pembroke in another year. And in an attempt to achieve some sort of budget stabilization or predictability, we as two organizations agreed to a freeze, knowing that the city of Pembroke, under this 1971 agreement, had an opportunity in 2021 to ask for renegotiations, and potentially, if we could not resolve our negotiations, that we could be up to arbitration by the Ontario Municipal Board. And so staff met, County of Renfrew staff met on a number of occasions with City of Pembroke staff and drafted what you have in your package, a memorandum of understanding, which really satisfies, I believe, the interests of both organizations. We are looking to begin a 10-year rolling average, so same cost apportionment basis, which is resident population, but rather than 1 year, using a 10-year rolling average, the starting point being 2016, and then the admission process for 2022 and moving forward will be when a resident is admitted to either one of our homes, that we ask the question about where your residency was over the preceding 10 years. And based on that information, we will either deem that resident to be coming from the city of Pembroke or from the county of Renfrew for future cost apportionment basis. In October, on the 22nd, there was a meeting of the County City Liaison Committee, and that liaison committee, municipal representatives for both organizations reviewed this document, and we are recommending this to be approved by County Council. Staff and the elected at the City of Pembroke are doing the same in an attempt to have an agreement ready to move forward for January 1st. And perhaps, Madam Chair, I will leave it at that.
Thank you so much. And I applaud the efforts of both staff from the county and the city. This is much like the Board of Health, sort of a lingering issue in the background. And I really feel that this agreement is a good one. Can I get a mover and seconder to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by the warden. Comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to see your commendation of staff at the county and the city of Pembroke, and also include the county city liaison committee. I'm inordinately pleased that what seems to me to be a very elegant solution was found to this long-standing issue, and especially that, it was done inside of 50 years. That's fantastic. The only thing that I perhaps, just for clarity, if Mr. Foss could check, I'm just wondering, and for committee, the gist, the text of the MOU is found on page 161. There is at item E, it begins with the phrase based on C. And I just question if that's correct, or if in fact it should be based on D. D sets out the protocol whereby the length of someone's residency is determined as to how to allocate that.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I believe that item E really references item D in this process, which is the pre-admission process, and this is the change that we're recommending to have a look at the 10-year history of that resident before admission. So item E should really reference item D to simply say, based on this, we will make that determination of which group the resident falls into. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. It just seemed to have made more sense to me. Thank you.
Anything further? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Can I get a mover and seconder for the report as a whole? Moved by, yeah, oh, yeah, Jeff, sorry.
Sorry, Madam Chair, there's just one other item.
I'm sorry.
Item 14.
My apologies. I printed on both sides. Sorry about that. There you go, Michael. That's payback for yesterday.
Needed 2 more grapes.
I did too. Another little branch. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this isn't necessarily a good news story. So rather, it would have been better, maybe, or easier if we had skipped by this one. But of course, on October the 26th, a meeting was held with Cowan Insurance. That's our essentially our consultant with respect to their negotiation efforts on behalf of the Municipal Benefits Committee. There are a number of local municipalities who also participate on this group insurance program. They discussed a renewal for services January 1 to December 31, 2022. And 2 agreements were made. One was to renew our agreement with Cowan to provide consulting services, as well as Manulife to provide the actual benefit program for the MBC. The rates that have been presented to Cowan from Manulife came in at a 29% increase for 2022. And then throughout a period of time during the fall, were renegotiated down to a 20, I think it's still 20% increase that will be in front of us for the year 2022. And so the committee has made the recommendation that we renew this program. And I believe there are probably some follow-up discussions that will be taking place with the members of the committee. Given the nature of this renewal, do we want to be looking at a RFP process for the future? There's a very hard market out there, and whether you're looking at municipal liability or property coverage, or if you're looking at employee health and benefit coverage, there is a very difficult pricing discussions that are going on throughout the industry, if you will. So I think that's a matter that has to be before the committee themselves to make a determination around, is this the time to go out, or will there be further bad news through an RFP process? So the recommendation is before you, and I'll read it to get it on the floor. That the Finance and Administration Committee recommend that a bylaw be adopted at the next session of council to enter into a service agreement renewal with Cowan Benefits Consulting for the period of Jan 1 to December 31, and further that County Council adopt a bylaw at the next session to enter into a service agreement renewal with Manulife Financial for the provision of benefits insurance program. policy 4704 for the period of Jan 1 to December 31, 2022.
Thank you. I think I blew by this because when I read the package, that's a heavy price tag. And I think it shocked me. But I will ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Hunt, seconded by Councillor Donahue. Comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Madam Chair. When I was reading this first, I thought it was a fascinating study in perspective. The first thing that I highlighted was we are pleased to report an increase of 20%. It took me some time to actually arrive at how Mr. Foss and I could be so different in our approach to the 20%. And from my perspective is, I guess I'm pleased if I only lose one fingernail instead of all of the fingernails off of one hand. Sure, one of them is pleasing. With that, this increase that's just under 1% of the 2021 levy for the county of Renfrew. And Mr. Foss had made reference. Certainly, we understand the cost pressures that are driving municipal liability insurance. We're also seeing the cost pressures driving homeowners insurance. For those who might dispute climate change, the insurance industry does not dispute whatsoever climate change, and it is dramatically increasing premiums on home insurance. But I'm wondering what is happening within the benefits regime. One would expect that in order to drive this, all of a sudden there must be claims being made for coverage that were heretofore not made. I cannot understand how so many more claims would be getting made that would drive that 20% increase. I wonder if Mr. Foss has any context he can provide, because I'm fairly certain I'm going to be getting an earful in my own municipality when this information is brought in front of them.
Well, thank you. And of course, all of these renewals are based on claims experience. And so it is Manulife's position that in order to provide the programs that we have, and those would, of course, be there's life insurance, there's long-term disability, there's extended health care, which is your drug program, hospital care, not a significant amount, but then certainly dental care programs. You'll see where the real drivers are, dental going up by 10, the extended health care, which is the drug program, going up by 24%, and then very little change on the life insurance program, but long-term disability is a significant driver of this cost as well. I'm not necessarily going to suggest that this is directly related to what's taking place worldwide with this pandemic and some of the disability issues that are flowing from the pandemic itself, from the labor force. But there are significant cost drivers coming from the long-term disability side of this renewal. So it's not maybe surprising. It's not coming from our life, and it's not coming from dental, although it's a 10% increase in the dental programs based on utilization. But it is in our drug program and our long-term disability program where the experience rating is suggesting that in order to recoup their costs and provide some buffer for profit for Manulife, that is the renewal program that's before us today. And therefore, from that Municipal Benefits Committee perspective, the next phase in this is to really give some hard thought around what do we intend to do with respect to staying in this market with these players, or do we have some wish to go out and test the market at this time to see if there's better pricing available for these programs for our staff. And so that discussion and analysis is yet to follow, but it certainly was an eye-opener, I think, for all of the members that sat around the committee table to have a look at this as our proposed renewal.
Thank you for that explanation. Supplementary, Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly as Mr. Foss has noted on the chart, long-term disability, extended healthcare, and hospitals seem to be the substantive drivers. All three of those, I think, are in excess of 30%, or certainly were in the initial iteration in excess of 30%. So that information is in front of us, but typically, when I've seen presentations by the Insurance Bureau of Canada in support of or more broad questions, they will have numerous charts and graphs wherein they are demonstrating the significant run on either a dramatic increase in number of claims or a significant increase in the value of these claims. And it's difficult, I think, for me anyway, it is, in trying to arrive at whether it might be sound due diligence to test the market without seeing like the industry information that's saying, here's what we are seeing that is the driver of these substantial increases. I can see that it's increasing by 30%. What I would say if they were sitting across the table from me is, tell me why it's 30%. Is that an increasing number of claims, or is it an increasing cost pressure within the services provided in that particular sector? So I would certainly appreciate if we don't have that, if we could get some more information, whether through Manulife or through Cowan, on what is the foundation for these enormous increases.
Thank you, Chair. So there was certainly a significant presentation that was made to the group by Cowan, and I think it would be not a problem for us to attach that presentation and those materials to the next meeting of this particular committee. And I think that we'd have an opportunity then to demonstrate some of the source information to the increase in the premiums.
That would be helpful. Yes, Warden.
Just on that topic, so if we're making a recommendation to County Council about this, is it a possibility we could get that presentation shared at County Council? We're going to be making a decision. We should have all the information. It's like deja vu. We've talked about this last night, Laurentian Valley as well. So I'm all for testing the market as long as it doesn't come back to haunt us. But certainly the presentation that Mr. Foss has, if we could share that at County Council, I think it would be beneficial.
That would be very helpful. Excellent. Anything further? All in favor? With extra information, obviously. Yes. Okay, thank you. The report as a whole. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Rose, second by Councillor Peckett. Anything further? All in favor? All right. Is there any new business? Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I've spoken with Paul about reports for these committee meetings and county council that are put up on the website, and it seems like only the first part of the report is there, not all the appendixes and schedules. And I'm understanding that it's because of accessibility. And so I've had some ratepayers contact me to find out why this information is not available to them. So I can go back with that. But I'm wondering if there is some method of sharing it perhaps with the local townships, and we could provide a name to who, so that all this information would be there for both our council, because some of them review it and put questions to me to bring up at county council, but also then for any of the ratepayers. When we went through this process on accessibility, we were told at council by our CAO was that we could put it up and then have a disclaimer there that if anyone had trouble reading the information, that we could provide it in a different format at their request, perhaps blow it up or whatever. I don't know if that's okay to do it that way, but I'm just wondering if we could look at some way to get this information out to the municipalities, and then we in turn could get it out to any of the ratepayers within our jurisdiction that are wanting the information. Thank you.
Forgive me if I'm incorrect, but Paul, wasn't this a matter, and I see Rosa's come up, was this not a matter of a problem uploading those documents onto our county website?
Chair, if I may, I'll turn it over to Rose to start the response.
Yes, please. You're on mute, Rose.
Sorry.
Come on, Rose. It's been 20 months. Come on.
Sorry.
You're better than that.
Chair, through you to Councillor Hunt. We do send these packages to the CAOs of all the local municipalities. So we usually send them out to councillors on Friday and we send it to the lower tiers on Monday.
Yes, Councillor Hunt.
Rose, is that for all the committee meetings? The agendas for all the?
Yes, it is.
Well, they suggested to me that they don't have it, but I'll have to go and back and check.
I will check on that, Madam Chair, and make sure that that is happening, but it should be happening.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Donahue. Thanks, Rose.
I think if memory serves that all of the information that was assembled in-house was easily facilitated. It was on the occasion when there were external documents. By times we have received, I will use it as an example from Hicks Morley, a letter on some particular municipal human resource issue. And I think in scanning those and making those accessible, that was the challenge. And ultimately the challenge was such that if we cannot get that available, then unfortunately the only solution was that we would not be able to post these at all on the public website, but that they would be available, I believe, on request. So I do, as memory serves also, Mr. Moore or Ms. Grunts, you can confirm, I thought that there was a third party that was engaged to work with us and that we were making some significant headway. If you could provide perhaps a timeline on when that might happen. And this is vis-a-vis the public being able to access these online. Just before I yield the floor back to you, Madam Chair, though, I would also like to bring to the attention, well, I'm sure staff are aware, even within the what I'll call the council portal, the password protected part of the website, there is inconsistency. I'm on there right now. So development and property contains both agendas, reports, and in a separate box, minutes, as does operations. Health Committee does not provide minutes, Finance does not provide minutes, and Community Services does not provide minutes. So even on that password protected portion of the website for council, there is inconsistency that from my own purposes, I would like to see resolved, that all of those minutes are available to all of council, and certainly look forward to them being publicly available.
So do we have a timeline on that AODA review?
So currently we have accessed Able Docs, who has offered us 3 training sessions thus far, but it's extremely time-consuming process to remediate these documents. They will also remediate them for us, but it's fairly costly. So we've gone there a couple of times, but only when we absolutely have to. One of the documents was a planning document that was fairly extensive and it cost us over $1,000. And so it's not cheap, but $60 or $80 an hour.
Right. Is there anything further on that? I think that the minutes issue can probably be easily corrected to make sure that all departments are the same. Thank you, Rose. Yes, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. So the one example was this meeting. What was up on the website was the first 32 pages, although it's a 160-page document. And Rose, I did throw a note to the CAO to see if we were getting it, and she tells me we're not. So perhaps you could look into that and let us know. Thank you.
I will do that.
Councillor Donahue.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. I'm certainly, that is one document that Ms. Grunts referenced that I'd pretty significant price tag. I'm not sure if there's been any kind of an analysis on what that might cost on an annualized basis. It seems to me that it might be exorbitant. Having said that, what I think is important to acknowledge is I'm certainly not disposed towards an exorbitant cost, but transparency and accountability is foundational to municipal governance. At some point, if this continues to be an impediment, then perhaps a proposition or a recommendation could be brought forward to council, because I think that it does behoove us to make these available to the public. Like justice, I think the sausage making of municipal governance should be made known.
Okay, thank you for that very colorful statement. Is there any other new business? Seeing none. Well, Finance and Admin Committee and staff, thank you so much for the past year. This is our final meeting, and Warden, thank you for entrusting me with this very important committee. It's been my pleasure to chair, and Brian, thanks for stepping in for me when needed. I really appreciate it. So with that, I will, County Council is obviously Wednesday, November 24th. And I will ask for a mover and seconder to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by Councillor Hunt. All in favor? We are adjourned.